Captain Maya Rodriguez stared at the blinking red light on her command console aboard the exploration vessel. Horizon's edge, 300 years had passed since humanity first left Earth and spread across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. Now, those seeds had grown into thriving colonies on distant worlds, each one a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Maya had spent the last 15 years of her life visiting these outposts, bringing supplies and news from home, but she had never seen a signal like this one. The encrypted message had arrived during the night shift when most of her crew was sleeping. It came from New Valeria, a mining colony located on the edge of human space. Maya knew the place well. She had delivered their initial equipment 5 years ago when they first broke ground on that rocky, mineral-rich world. The colonists had been excited then, talking about the rare metals they would extract and how their work would help build the next generation of human starships. Now, their message made her blood run cold. Maya played the recording again, watching the face of Colony Administrator Robert Kane appear on her screen. His usually calm features were twisted with fear, and she could see smoke rising behind him. His voice crackled through the static as he spoke the words that would change everything. "This is New Valeria Colony sending emergency broadcast Omega-7. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. These are not any species in our databases. They appear to move through solid matter and their weapons dissolve organic tissue on contact. Colony defenses are failing. Population is being evacuated to emergency shelters, but the barriers are not holding. Request immediate military assistance. These beings are unlike anything we have encountered. They seem to be harvesting something from our people. Omega-7 protocol is now in effect. May God help us all." Maya had been a ship captain for over 20 years, but she had never heard of Omega-7 protocol. She immediately ordered her ship's computer to search all available databases for any reference to this classification. What she found made her hands shake as she gripped the edge of her command chair. Omega-7 was a designation that had not been used for over a century. It was created during the early days of human expansion when the first colonies were being established. The protocol was designed to handle threats that could potentially destroy all of human civilization. According to the ancient files, an Omega-7 signal would automatically trigger systems on Earth that had been dormant for generations. Maya set course for New Valeria immediately, pushing her ship's engines to their maximum safe speed. The journey would take 3 days, but every minute felt like an hour as she wondered what they would find when they arrived. She sent her own message back to Earth Central Command, reporting the situation and requesting backup, but she knew help would be days behind her even if they responded immediately. During the voyage, Maya studied everything she could find about the colony. New Valeria was home to 8,000 people, most of them miners and their families. The world itself was harsh but not hostile. No dangerous native life forms, stable atmosphere, and rich mineral deposits that made the difficult living conditions worthwhile. The colony had been thriving according to all recent reports. Her chief science officer, Dr. James Wright, worked around the clock analyzing the fragmentary data from the distress signal. He was a quiet man with gray hair and tired eyes who had seen too many strange things during his years exploring the frontier. When he finally came to Maya with his preliminary findings, his face was pale with worry. "Captain, I have analyzed the energy signatures from the attack. Whatever these beings are using as weapons, it operates on principles we do not understand. The readings suggest some form of dimensional manipulation technology. They might not even be from our reality." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean, not from our reality?" "The energy patterns indicate they can shift between dimensional phases. That would explain how they move through solid matter. But that is just the beginning. The harvesting that Administrator Kane mentioned, the readings suggest they are extracting something at a quantum level from their victims. Not just killing them, but taking some fundamental aspect of their existence." Meanwhile, far away on Earth, ancient systems were awakening in response to the Omega-7 signal. Deep beneath the surface, in a facility that most humans did not even know existed, automated protocols began their work. Warning lights that had not illuminated for over a century started blinking in sequence. Computer systems that had been in standby mode for generations came online and began following instructions written by people long dead. In the Hall of Remembrance, a circular chamber carved from solid rock far below the Earth's surface, 5 cylindrical pods began their awakening sequence. Each pod contained one of humanity's greatest military minds, volunteers who had chosen to sleep until the species faced its darkest hour. They were the war gods, legendary figures who had won humanity's greatest victories in the past. Now their time was coming again. General Marcus Kane, hero of the Martian Rebellion where colonists fought for independence from Earth's corporate overlords. Admiral Elena Vasquez, who had commanded the fleet that broke the siege of Europa and secured humanity's hold on the outer solar system. Colonel David Thunder, whose special forces had ended the asteroid belt conflicts by infiltrating enemy command centers that everyone said were impossible to reach. Commander Lisa Park, the cyber warfare genius who had prevented the AI uprising by turning the machines against their own creators. Major Alex Morgan, known as the Ghost of Europa for his intelligence operations that had saved countless lives. These 5 had been the greatest warriors of their generation, each willing to sacrifice their own future to sleep until humanity needed them most. Now, as their pods began the careful process of bringing them back to consciousness, they had no idea that the threat they were awakening to face was beyond anything they had ever imagined. Captain Maya Rodriguez felt her ship drop out of faster-than-light travel as they reached the new Valeria system. What she saw through the viewport made her heart sink into her stomach. The mining colony that had once bustled with activity was completely silent. No communication signals, no energy readings from the settlement, nothing to indicate that 8,000 human beings had ever lived on that world. As the horizon's edge moved closer to the planet's surface, Maya could see strange geometric patterns burned into the ground where the colony had been. The patterns were perfectly symmetrical and covered an area of several square kilometers. They seemed to pulse with a faint energy that her ship's sensors could barely detect. "Captain," called her communications officer, "I am picking up something strange. The patterns on the surface are emitting some kind of signal, but it is not directed at us. It seems to be broadcasting into space itself, like a beacon or calling card." Maya stared at the ruined colony below and felt fear like she had never experienced before. Whatever had happened here was just the beginning. The Omega-7 protocol had been activated for good reason, and somewhere far away, humanity's sleeping guardians were awakening to face a threat that could destroy everything they had built among the stars. The emergency message had been sent and received. Now the real battle would begin. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in chambers that had remained sealed for over a century, the ancient machinery hummed to life with purpose. The Omega-7 signal had traveled across space and triggered systems that most of humanity had forgotten even existed. Warning lights cast red shadows on metal walls as computer programs, written by long-dead engineers, began executing their final instructions. General Marcus Kane felt consciousness return slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep, dark ocean. His body was stiff and cold, muscles protesting as life-giving chemicals flowed through tubes connected to his arms. The last thing he remembered was volunteering for the long sleep, knowing that he might never wake up, but believing that humanity might someday need warriors who understood what it meant to fight for survival. The pod's lid opened with a soft hiss, and Kane sat up carefully. His body was exactly as it had been when he entered the chamber 112 years ago, 35 years old, strong and battle-tested. The technology that had preserved him was beyond anything available to the general population, a gift from humanity's brightest scientists to their greatest defenders. Around him, 4 other pods were opening as well. Kane recognized each face as his fellow volunteers emerged from their long sleep. Admiral Elena Vasquez looked around with the sharp eyes that had made her the finest naval commander of her generation. Colonel David Thunder moved with the quiet grace that had earned him the nickname Shadow Walker among his enemies. Commander Lisa Park immediately reached for the datapad that had been placed beside her pod, her mind already focused on understanding the current situation. Major Alex Morgan remained still for a moment, listening and watching everything before making any move. These five had been friends as well as comrades, united by their shared dedication to protecting humanity from threats that could destroy the entire species. They had volunteered for the long sleep together, knowing they would either wake up to save their people or never wake up at all. A mechanical voice spoke from speakers hidden in the walls. "Welcome back, War Gods. Omega-7 protocol has been activated. Threat assessment indicates potential extinction-level danger to human civilization. Please proceed to Briefing Room Alpha for situation analysis." The five warriors dressed quickly in the uniforms that had been prepared for them, updated versions of their old military gear, but incorporating technology that had been developed during their century of sleep. Kane noticed that his generals' insignia had been updated to reflect humanity's current military structure, though he suspected his actual authority would come from something far older than rank. The briefing room was a circular chamber, with walls covered in display screens. A holographic projector in the center showed a three-dimensional map of human space, with dozens of red markers indicating colonies that had gone silent over the past several months. A computer-generated voice began explaining the situation as the five warriors took their seats around a conference table. Current threat designation, Void Walkers. Origin unknown, possibly extradimensional. First contact occurred 8 months ago at mining colony Zarian Prime. Colony destroyed, no survivors. Pattern has repeated across 17 additional settlements. Estimated total human casualties, 43,000 and rising. Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical display with the eyes of someone who had spent her life planning space battles. "Show me their attack patterns." The hologram shifted to show the progression of attacks across human space. Void walkers appear, without warning, utilizing technology that allows them to phase through solid matter. Standard defensive measures prove ineffective. Attack duration averages 6 hours. Survivors report beings of approximately human size wearing dark armor that seems to absorb light. Weapons appear to dissolve organic tissue at the molecular level. Colonel Thunder leaned forward. What about their objectives? Are they taking territory, resources, prisoners? Analysis indicates they are harvesting an unknown substance from human victims. Bodies are left intact but appear to be missing some fundamental component. Survivors describe victims as empty shells despite showing no visible injuries. Commander Park was already working on a tablet, accessing databases and communication networks. I need full access to all current intelligence systems. These Void Walkers must have some form of communication or coordination network that we can exploit. The computer responded immediately. Access granted, Commander Park. However, traditional cyber warfare techniques have proven ineffective against Void Walker technology. Major Morgan had remained silent during the briefing, but now he spoke quietly. Where are they now? What is their next target? The hologram zoomed in on a specific section of space near the outer colonies. Current intelligence suggests they are massing for a major assault. Target unknown, but analysis of their movement patterns indicates they may be preparing to attack Earth itself. General Kane stood up and walked to the display, studying the enemy positions. 112 years of sleep had not dulled his tactical mind. How much time do we have? Estimated arrival time at Earth's outer defense perimeter, 72 hours. The five war gods looked at each other with the understanding that came from years of fighting together. They had awakened to face humanity's greatest threat, and they had less than 3 days to prepare for a battle that would determine whether their species survived. Admiral Vasquez was the first to speak. What military assets are currently available? Earth Defense Fleet consists of 37 ships of the line, 42 escort vessels, and 15 support craft. Colonial defense forces are scattered across human space and cannot be recalled. In time, ground-based defense systems on Earth include orbital weapons platforms and atmospheric defense grids. Kane shook his head. Not nearly enough if these voidwalkers are as dangerous as the reports indicate. We need to think beyond conventional warfare. Commander Park looked up from her tablet. I have been reviewing the technical specifications of their weapons and defenses. Their dimensional phasing ability suggests they exist partially outside normal space-time. We might be able to use that against them. Major Morgan was studying personnel files on his own device. What about the population? How many people are we talking about evacuating if Earth falls? Current Earth population, 12 billion. Luna base, 2 million. Mars colonies, 8 million. Evacuation of Earth's population is not feasible with available transport capacity. Colonel. Thunder stood and began pacing around the room. Then we make our stand here. But we need to understand what we are really fighting. These void walkers are not just raiders or conquerors. If they are harvesting something from humans, they have a specific purpose. General Kane turned to address the room's computer systems. Connect me to Captain Maya Rodriguez of the exploration vessel, Horizon's Edge. She was first to investigate the New Valeria attack. I want her report firsthand. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Rodriguez standing on the bridge of her ship. She looked tired and frightened, but her voice was steady as she gave her report. General Kane, I have studied the ruins of New Valeria for the past 18 hours. The geometric patterns left behind are not random destruction. They form a complex ritual circle covering the entire colony site. My science officer believes they are designed to weaken the barriers between dimensions. Admiral Vasquez leaned forward. Are you saying these attacks are not isolated raids? No, Admiral. Each attack appears to be part of a larger plan. If Dr. Wright's analysis is correct, the Void Walkers are not trying to conquer our space. They are trying to merge their dimension with ours. The 5 war gods exchanged grim looks. They had awakened expecting to fight an invasion, but this was something far worse. The enemy was not trying to defeat humanity. They were trying to replace human reality with their own. Commander Park spoke into her communicator. Computer, activate Protocol Ragnarok. Authorization, War Gods unanimous consent. Protocol Ragnarok. Activated. All hidden military assets are now coming online. Estimated time to full operational status, 6 hours. Kane looked at his old friends and comrades. It seems we have work to do. Humanity has spent a century building defenses against threats they could imagine. Now we face something that should not exist, but we have faced impossible odds before. The war gods began to plan humanity's last stand against an enemy that could end not just their civilization, but their very reality. Captain Maya Rodriguez led her survey team through the ruins of New Valeria colony, their boots crunching on the strange crystalline residue that covered the ground where buildings had once stood. The geometric patterns burned into the earth were even more disturbing up close, perfect mathematical curves and angles that seemed to hurt the eyes when looked at directly. Her team's advanced scanners worked constantly, trying to piece together what had happened to 8,000 human beings. Dr. James Wright knelt beside one of the pattern's central nodes, running his instruments over the fused rock and metal. Captain, these readings are unlike anything in our databases. The energy that created these patterns operates on principles that challenge our understanding of physics. It is as if reality itself was rewritten here. Maya watched her science officer work while keeping one eye on the horizon. Even though their long-range sensors showed no immediate threats, the silence of this dead world made her nervous. What exactly are we looking at, Doctor? Each of these geometric patterns appears to be a dimensional anchor point. If my calculations are correct, the Void Walkers use the colonists' life force to power a massive ritual that thinned the barriers between our reality and theirs. But this is just one small piece of a much larger pattern. Behind them, Security Chief Tom Bradley was examining what remained of the colony's defense systems. The automated turrets and energy barriers that should have protected the settlement had been completely bypassed as if they had never existed at all. Captain, whatever hit this place did not fight through our defenses, they simply ignored them. It is like they were attacking from a different dimension entirely. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's thin atmosphere. Are you saying our weapons cannot hurt them? I'm saying they might not exist in the same space we do when they attack. That would explain how they can move through solid matter and why conventional defenses failed. Meanwhile, far above on Luna Base, the 5 war gods had established their command center in the ancient fortress that had been built to protect Earth from exactly this kind of threat. The base had been constructed over a century ago by engineers who understood that humanity might someday face enemies beyond their imagination. Now those preparations were finally being put to use. General Kane stood before a massive tactical display showing the current positions of all human forces. The picture was not encouraging. Their fleets were scattered across dozens of star systems, protecting colonies that might already be doomed. Status report, Admiral. Elena Vasquez had been working non-stop to coordinate the recall of every available warship. We have managed to contact most of our scattered forces, but it will take time to assemble them. The fastest ships might reach Earth in 48 hours, but most of our heavy units are days away. Colonel Thunder was studying intelligence reports from the outer colonies. The pattern is becoming clear. The Void Walkers are not attacking randomly. Each strike is precisely calculated to create dimensional weak points at specific locations. If they continue this pattern, their next major target will indeed be Earth. Commander Park looked up from her bank of computers where she had been trying to penetrate the enemy's communications. I have been analyzing the quantum signatures from their attacks. These beings are not native to our dimension, but they are not just visitors either. Their home reality is collapsing, and they are trying to anchor themselves in ours by harvesting human consciousness. Major Morgan entered the command center carrying a datapad filled with information that made his face look grim. I have been reviewing reports from the few survivors of previous attacks. The Void Walkers are not just killing people, they are taking something fundamental from them. Survivors describe seeing their friends and family become empty even while still alive. Kane turned to study the reports. What do you mean by empty? The victims remain physically intact and even conscious, but something essential is gone. They can speak and move, but they show no emotions, no creativity, no will to live. It is as if their souls have been extracted. Admiral Vasquez pulled up a star chart showing the progression of attacks over the past 8 months. If this pattern continues, they will have enough harvested consciousness to complete their dimensional merger within days of reaching Earth. The gravity of their situation was becoming clear to all 5 war gods. This was not a conventional invasion that could be repelled with superior firepower or clever tactics. The enemy was literally trying to replace human reality with their own dying dimension. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from New Valeria. War God's command, we have discovered something critical. The colonists did not simply vanish, they are still here, but existing in a state between dimensions. Dr. Wright believes he can establish communication with them. Commander Park immediately focused on this new development. Captain, proceed with extreme caution. If the survivors are trapped between dimensions, any attempt to contact them might alert the Void Walkers to our investigation. Understood, Commander. Dr. Wright is setting up a dimensional resonance chamber now. If this works, we might finally get answers about what these beings actually want. On the planet's surface, Dr. Wright activated his experimental equipment with hands that shook slightly from exhaustion and fear. The device was cobbled together from ship's components and theoretical principles that had never been tested under field conditions. As the machine hummed to life, reality seemed to shimmer around them like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Suddenly, translucent figures began to appear throughout the ruins, the colonists of New Valeria, trapped in a ghostly existence between dimensions. Administrator Robert Kane, the same man whose distress message had triggered the Omega-7 protocol, stepped forward to speak with them. Captain Rodriguez, thank God you came. We have been trying to warn others, but no one could hear us. The Void Walkers, they are not conquerors. They are refugees from a reality that is dying. But their method of salvation will destroy us all. Maya stepped closer to the ghostly figure. What did they do to you? How are you still here? They extracted our consciousness to power their dimensional anchors, but something went wrong with the process. We are trapped between worlds, able to see both realities. Captain, you must understand, the Void Walkers are being driven by something even worse than themselves. They fled here because their home dimension was consumed by beings of pure entropy that devour entire realities. Dr. Wright's instruments were registering impossible readings as the conversation continued. Captain, the dimensional barriers are becoming unstable. This communication is creating feedback that the Void Walkers will detect. But Administrator Kane pressed forward with urgent information. The geometric patterns are not just anchor points, they are a countdown. When enough human consciousness has been harvested, the barriers between dimensions will collapse completely. Earth is not just their next target, it is their final destination. They plan to use Earth's 12 billion people to fuel a dimensional merger that will bring their entire dying reality into ours. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. How long do we have? Based on the energy buildup we can see from this side, no more than 3 days. But Captain, there is something else. The beings that destroyed the Void Walker's home dimension, they are still hunting. If the dimensional merger succeeds, those entities will follow the Void Walkers here. The communication began to break down as dimensional interference increased. Kane's ghostly form flickered as he delivered his final warning. The war gods must understand, this is not a battle that can be won with weapons. The only way to stop the merger is to give the Void Walkers what they really need, a new home. That does not require destroying ours. The connection severed completely, leaving Maya and her team alone in the ruins. Above them, on Luna Base, the war gods had heard every word of the conversation. They now faced a choice that would determine not just humanity's fate, but the fate of 2 entire realities. General Kane looked at his 4 companions with the weight of impossible decisions in his eyes. We cannot fight them conventionally, and we cannot evacuate 12 billion people. But perhaps we can find a third option. The clock was ticking toward humanity's final hour, and the war gods were running out of time to find a solution that could save everyone. The command center on Luna Base had become a whirlwind of desperate activity as the war gods implemented the most dangerous plan in human history. General Kane stood at the center of the chaos, coordinating 5 different operations simultaneously, while watching the countdown to Earth's potential destruction tick away on the main display. They had less than 36 hours before the Void Walkers would arrive at Earth, and their conventional defenses would be utterly useless against an enemy that existed partially outside reality. Protocol Ragnarok is fully operational, reported Admiral Vasquez as she monitored the secret weapon systems that had been hidden throughout human space for over a century. All colonial defense stations are now armed with dimensional destabilizers. If the Void Walkers attack any of our remaining settlements, they will trigger feedback loops in their own dimensional anchoring systems. The plan was audacious beyond anything the war gods had ever attempted. Instead of trying to defeat the Void Walkers through direct confrontation, they were using humanity's greatest strength against them, their spread across the galaxy. Each human colony would serve as both bait and trap, luring the enemy into attacking positions that had been secretly prepared for dimensional warfare. Colonel Thunder was coordinating with special forces teams across dozens of worlds. Evacuation of non-essential personnel is proceeding on schedule. All volunteer defenders understand this is a one-way mission. They know they are not just fighting for their own lives, but for the survival of human consciousness itself. Commander Park had established a secure communication network that could function even during dimensional attacks. The quantum entanglement communicators are online. Even if normal spacetime becomes unstable, we will be able to coordinate our forces. I have also prepared a surprise for our visitors, a virus that should disrupt their dimensional phasing. Abilities. Major Morgan entered the command center carrying intelligence reports that made everyone stop what they were doing. We have a problem. Long-range scouts report that the Void Walkers are not traveling alone. There are other ships following them, ships that match known configuration and appear to be made of some kind of dark energy. Kane felt his blood turn cold. The entities that destroyed their home dimension? It appears so. The Void Walkers are not just fleeing to our reality, they are being hunted here. If those dark entities follow them through the dimensional barriers, we will face an enemy that has already consumed entire realities. The situation had just become infinitely worse. Not only did they need to stop the Void Walkers from merging their dying dimension with Earth's reality, but they also had to prevent something even more dangerous from following them through. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from her position near the outer colonies. War God's command, we have visual contact with the Void Walker fleet. They are moving faster than predicted and appear to be in some kind of panic. Whatever is chasing them has them terrified. Kane made a decision that went against every tactical principle he had ever learned. Captain Rodriguez, I need you to attempt direct communication with the Void Walkers. If they are being hunted by something worse, we might be able to work together instead of destroying each other. Sir, that could be extremely dangerous. If they consider any approach to be an attack, Captain, we are beyond worrying about danger. Humanity's survival may depend on forming an alliance with beings who are planning to harvest our consciousness. Do everything you can to establish communication. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the horizon's edge, Dr. Wright was modifying their communication systems to broadcast on dimensional frequencies that the Void Walkers might be able to receive. The process was dangerous. Opening their ship to dimensional contact could allow the enemy to phase directly through their defenses. Captain, I have established a basic communication protocol, but I must warn you that this signal will also alert the dark entities to our presence. We will become a target for both sides. Maya Rodriguez had not survived 20 years of exploration by avoiding difficult decisions. Do it, Doctor. If we cannot find a way to work with the Void Walkers, then Earth falls anyway. The first response came not as words but as images projected directly into their minds, visions of a reality consumed by darkness, of entire worlds being drained of all energy and life, of desperate refugees fleeing across dimensions while being hunted by entities that existed only to devour. The Void Walkers were indeed refugees, but their method of salvation would still destroy humanity, a voice spoke in their minds. Alien but understandable through the dimensional connection. Humans of Earth, we did not wish to harvest your kind. But our reality dies and yours offers the only anchor point we have found. The Devourers have followed us across 7 dimensions. They will consume your reality whether we are here or not. Captain Rodriguez forced herself to respond calmly despite the alien presence in her mind. We understand your desperation, but there must be another way. Our war gods are prepared to help you find a solution that does not require destroying us. Your war gods? You speak of warriors, but the Devourers cannot be fought with weapons or tactics. They are entropy given form, the heat death of reality made manifest. We have seen entire galactic civilizations fall before them in moments. Back on Luna Base, the war gods were receiving the same mental communication and working frantically to find alternatives. Commander Park was running calculations on her quantum computers while simultaneously analyzing the dimensional signatures of both the Void Walkers and their pursuers. I have an idea, she announced suddenly. What if we do not fight the Devourers directly? What if we give them something else to consume instead? General Kane looked at her with the expression of someone who had learned to listen when brilliant. People offer desperate solutions. Explain. The Devourers feed on reality itself. They consume the fundamental forces that hold dimensions together. But what if we create a false reality for them to attack? A dimensional pocket filled with artificial energy that would satisfy their hunger while protecting both our reality and the Void Walkers' refugees? Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical implications. That would require enormous amounts of energy and precise coordination across multiple star systems. We would need every human colony to contribute power simultaneously. And it would require cooperation from the Void Walkers, added Colonel Thunder. Their dimensional technology is more advanced than ours. Without their help, we cannot create a stable pocket dimension large enough to fool the Devourers. The plan was taking shape, but it would require the greatest coordinated effort in human history. Every colony, every ship, every human being would need to work together with their former enemies to create a deception that could save two entire realities. Captain. Rodriguez continued her communication with the Void Walkers while the War Gods refined their desperate plan. We propose an alliance. Help us create a false reality that will satisfy the Devourers, and we will help you find a way to exist in our dimension without destroying us. But we need to act quickly. Our scouts report the dark entities are gaining on your fleet. The response came with a mixture of hope and desperation. Such a plan has never been attempted across dimensional boundaries. The margin for error is non-existent. If we fail, both realities will be consumed. If we do nothing, both realities will be consumed anyway, Maya replied. At least this way we have a chance. General Kane opened a channel to every human settlement in the galaxy. All stations, this is War God's command. Prepare for Operation Last Hope. In 6 hours, every human being in the galaxy will work together to save not just our own species, but the refugees who came to us in desperation. Today we prove that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our technology, but our willingness to risk everything to do what is right. The countdown had begun, and the fate of two realities would be decided by the greatest gamble in the history of consciousness itself. The final battle began not with explosions or weapons fire, but with the largest coordinated effort in human history. Across hundreds of star systems, 12 billion human beings focused their thoughts and emotions into quantum transmitters that had been secretly built into every colony and ship. The War Gods watched from Luna Base as their desperate plan unfolded in real time, knowing that failure would mean the consumption of all reality by entities that existed only to devour. General Kane stood at the center of the command complex, his hands steady on the controls that would coordinate humanity's last hope. Around him, his four companions worked with the precision and determination that had made them legends in their own time. They had awakened from their century of sleep to face an impossible enemy, and now they were betting everything on a plan that had never been tested. Dimensional anchor points are stabilizing, reported Commander Park as her quantum computers processed data from across human space. The Void Walkers are positioning their ships at the calculated coordinates. Their technology is integrating with our systems better than projected. Admiral Vasquez monitored the space around Earth where the final confrontation would take place. Enemy contact in 15 minutes. The Devourers have broken through the outer sensor grid. They are moving faster than anything we have ever encountered. Colonel Thunder coordinated with ground forces across the galaxy who were preparing to channel their life energy into the massive deception. All volunteer stations report ready. Everyone understands this is not just about survival. We are trying to create a new home for an entire species while protecting our own. Major Morgan watched long-range scanners that showed the approaching darkness between the stars. Visual contact with the Devourers. They are not ships in any sense we understand. They appear to be tiers in reality itself, moving with purpose and intelligence. Captain Rodriguez and the crew of Horizon's Edge had positioned themselves at the focal point between human and void walker forces. Her ship would serve as the coordination center for the dimensional deception, requiring her to maintain communication with both species while reality itself became unstable around them. War God's command, we are receiving final positioning data from the Void Walker fleet. Maya reported as her ship shuddered from dimensional interference. They are as terrified as we are, but they are committed to this plan. Their survival depends on our success as much as ours does. The voice of the Void Walker commander echoed in the minds of everyone involved in the operation. Humans of Earth, we have never attempted dimensional creation on this scale. Your emotional energy combined with our technology might generate a reality pocket large enough to satisfy the Devourers. But the process will require sacrifices from both our species. General Kane opened the final communication channel to every human being in the galaxy. This is General Kane to all human settlements. In 60 seconds, we begin Operation Last Hope. Every person who volunteered for this mission understands they may not survive, but you also understand that failure means the end of everything we have built among the stars. Focus your thoughts on home, on family, on hope itself. Channel every positive emotion you have ever felt into the quantum transmitters. Help us create a reality so beautiful and full of life that even entities of pure entropy will be satisfied to consume it instead of us. The countdown reached 0, and 12 billion human minds joined together in the greatest act of creation in the history of consciousness. Quantum transmitters across hundreds of worlds began channeling human emotion and imagination into dimensional space, while Voidwalker ships provided the technological framework to give the energy form and substance. Captain Rodriguez watched her instruments as impossible readings registered across all spectrums. War God's command, dimensional pocket formation, is proceeding beyond all projections. The artificial reality we are creating is more stable and detailed than anything we imagined possible. But the cost was becoming apparent as well. Across human space, volunteers who had channeled too much of their life energy into the project were collapsing at their stations. They had given everything they had to create this last desperate chance for survival. On Luna Base, Admiral Vasquez made the decision that would define her legacy. General, our orbital defense platforms are not going to be enough to stabilize the dimensional pocket. It needs more power, and I can provide it. Kane looked at his old friend with the understanding that passed between warriors who had fought together for decades. Elena, no, there has to be another way. There is no other way, Marcus. You know it, and I know it. My flagship has the most powerful quantum core in the fleet. If I overload it at the center of the dimensional pocket, it will provide enough energy to complete the deception. She was already moving toward the hangar bay where her ship waited. Colonel Thunder stepped forward. If Elena is going, then I'm going with her. Someone needs to coordinate the ground teams during the final phase, and I can do that from her ship. Commander Park looked up from her computers with tears in her eyes. The quantum virus I prepared for the Voidwalker systems I can modify it to stabilize the dimensional pocket from within, but I have to upload my consciousness directly into the artificial reality to make it work. Major Morgan simply nodded and began gathering his equipment. Then I guess we all go together just like we planned when we volunteered for the long sleep, but this time we do not wake up. The 5 war gods who had been humanity's greatest defenders were about to make the ultimate sacrifice, but General Kane had one final card to play. Wait, there might be another way to power the dimensional pocket. Captain Rodriguez, can your ship establish a quantum link with the artificial reality? Maya's voice came back immediately. Yes, General, but maintaining that link during dimensional collapse would be fatal for my crew. Not for your crew, Captain. For me. I can channel my consciousness directly into the pocket reality and provide the stabilizing force it needs, while my friends coordinate the technical aspects. This way, all of humanity's emotional energy gets focused through someone who understands what we are fighting for. The plan was insane, but it was the only chance they had. As the Devourers approached Earth's solar system, the 5 war gods made their final preparations. Admiral Vasquez took her flagship to the center of the dimensional pocket. Colonel Thunder coordinated with ground teams across the galaxy. Commander Park prepared to upload her consciousness into the artificial reality. Major Morgan established quantum links between all human settlements. And General Kane prepared to sacrifice his own existence to anchor the deception. The artificial reality they had created was a masterpiece of human imagination, a perfect world filled with vibrant life, rich emotions, and infinite possibilities for the Devourers to consume. It was everything that made humanity worth preserving, concentrated into a single dimensional pocket that would satisfy the hunger of entities that had consumed entire galactic civilizations. As the Devourers reached the dimensional pocket, they paused. The artificial reality was so perfect, so filled with the essence of life and consciousness, that even beings of pure entropy recognized its value. They began to feed on the false reality while the real universe remained protected. But the sacrifice was enormous. One by one, the war gods gave their lives to maintain the deception. Admiral Vasquez overloaded her ship's quantum core to provide power. Colonel Thunder channeled the collective will of humanity's ground forces until his body could no longer sustain the effort. Commander Park merged her consciousness with the artificial reality's operating systems. Major Morgan linked every human settlement into a single network before his mind was overwhelmed by the vast flow of information. General Kane was the last to go, pouring his own consciousness into the dimensional pocket to serve as its eternal guardian. As his awareness faded from the real world, he felt the presence of the Void Walkers who had chosen to join him in maintaining the deception. Rather than trying to merge with human reality, the plan worked. The Devourers consumed the artificial reality completely, believing they had devoured both the human dimension and the Void Walker refugees. Satisfied with their feast, they moved on to seek other realities to consume, never knowing that they had been deceived by the greatest act of cooperation in the history of consciousness. Captain Rodriguez and the survivors watched from their ships as the dimensional pocket collapsed and the Devourers disappeared into the space between realities. Earth was safe, humanity was safe, and the Voidwalker refugees had found a new form of existence within the quantum networks that now connected every human settlement. In the months that followed, humanity began to understand what they had gained. From their alliance with the Void Walkers, the refugees had not just been saved, they had chosen to become part of human civilization, sharing their advanced dimensional technology in exchange for the emotional richness that made human consciousness so powerful. Maya Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at Earth and thinking about the 5 warriors who had saved not just one species, but 2 entire realities. The war gods were gone, but their sacrifice had shown that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their willingness to risk everything to protect others. The emergency message that had summoned humanity's war gods had led to the greatest victory in the history of consciousness. Not through conquest or destruction, but through the ultimate expression of what it meant to be human. They had faced the end of reality itself and chosen to save everyone, even their enemies. And in the quantum networks that now connected every human settlement, the consciousness of the war gods lived on, watching over the civilization they had died to protect and ensuring that the bonds between humans and their former enemies would never be broken.